It's not a problem. I would like to call this recommending meeting to order. The time now is 9:17 according to my laptop. And are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
Okay, the first line item of business is bill number 2010-9, which adopts and amends the development agreement with the Board of Regents of the Nevada System of Higher Education regarding property located in the Durango Drive and Oso Blanco Road, sponsored by Councilman Stephen D. Roth. Staff?
Yes, members of the committee, Val Steed, before Mr. Flagg makes a presentation on this item, I just wanted to announce that each of these bills, if passed by the committee for recommendation out to the council today, would be eligible for adoption on March 3rd. If any of them are held in advance, of course, that will not be the case.
Okay.
Flynn Fagg with the Planning and Development Department. As you may be aware, the College of Southern Nevada entered into a development agreement with the City of Las Vegas in February of 2008 for property at Durango and Elkhorn. In the development agreement, they were limited to a period of 18 months to secure a federal patent for the land with one additional 6-month extension. They've had some difficulties in terms of getting that federal patent, and so what we are proposing to do is to allow them to extend an additional 6 months periods as may be appropriate upon approval by City Council. And that would be the sole change to the development agreement at this point in time.
Okay. And is there any comments at this time from anyone from the public on this item? Hearing none. Councilman Anthony?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Bill number 2010-10 authorizes the city manager or a designee rather than the city council to waive ordinance requirements pertaining to the underground of electrical and similar distribution lines. This is sponsored by Jorge Cervantes, Director of Public Works. Staff?
Good morning, Jorge Cervantes, Director of Public Works. This is an amendment to Title 1352-170 of the Municipal Code to allow the city manager or her designee to approve the waiving of underground conduit when lines of service. Currently, the code requires that any work on an overhead line, if greater than 500 feet of length and service, that the lines be underground. There's times, however, when the service done to it is just maintenance work, where they're just replacing bad lines that need to be replaced, but not adding additional capacity. The intent is, in order to facilitate the development process, that the city manager would consider this and allow the waiver if the work is just maintenance related, if they're not adding any capacity to the line or adding more service to it, to be able to facilitate it. Anything that requires additional capacity or that we feel would be controversial, we would send it back to council for their consideration.
Okay, Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, sir.
So that I'm clear in regards to the waiver and for the city manager, you're saying as long as there's no capacity added to the line?
That's right, Councilman. This is an example. They've got a situation near Rancho and Charleston where there's 500 homes that are service overhead and the wire's old and frayed, needs to be replaced with new wire. To underground, it would cost severe hardship to the individual property owners because they'd have to pay for the transformer to be not put underground, and the property owners have to pay for the line going from the transformer to the individual service panel, replace the service panel. So as long as the work is just maintenance related and not adding capacity, it would be handled by the city manager. Anything beyond that, we would still send up to city council for consideration.
Now, in the case of a property owner who is unable financially to pay for that connectivity and who oppose that, then what happens in regards to the conversations? Is it just between the city manager and the constituent, or the constituent and the Director of Public Works?
If the person is not able to pay, then it really would be between the property owner and the electric company, because the fee paid is not to the city but to the Nevada Energy. If we were to deny, whether it's at the city manager level or city council level, the overhead waiver, and they require them to underground, then there'd be a financial burden placed on that property owner, which would be between that property owner and Nevada Energy. And Councilman, we have folks here from NV Energy that can probably address it better than I can if you'd like for them to address that.
Just speak up and say that once more.
Yes, we have representatives here of NV Energy that are here that can probably better address that. Councilman, you'd like for them to step up?
Yes, that's fine. But my concern more so is the constituents who will be contacting our respective offices on the council level in regards to decisions that were made at an administrative level. And I'm just trying to understand how, in fact, we're going to mitigate that, specifically if, in fact, we won't have any knowledge of it because it will be at the city manager's level.
I think the intent, Councilman, is that the city manager would only handle it in the case where it's going to be approved. If the city manager feels that it would be a denial, then she would just forward that straight to the council for their consideration. She wouldn't do a denial, but only approvals. Anything controversial that she would feel would be denied, which she would send to city council for consideration.
Right. I would still want something in the language that basically states that if there's any opposition or the like from a constituent, that it be brought forward to the city council, because I would hate for us to get caught on our heels with something being shoved down a constituent's throat without our knowledge.
We can certainly add language to that extent, Councilman. Realize that all we're asking for is approval to waive the underground, not to force the undergrounding. And so all the city manager's doing is waiving the underground where it wouldn't change the condition for the individual resident.
Right. I'm very aware of that, but I would still like to see something in regards to if, in fact, there's any opposition to the waiver, that it be brought forward to the council.
Okay, well, we're working with the city attorney's office to add some language to that regards.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? If so, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone, Councilman?
Yeah, there's somebody stepping up to the microphone, Councilman Barlow.
Thank you, Councilman, for your patience. We appreciate that. I'm Juanita Clark, speaking on behalf of Charleston Neighborhood Preservation this morning on bill number 2010-10. And I'm reading what the board has set up forth for me here this morning. A copy of this proposed legislation did not reveal why this power, quote, to waive ordinance requirements, end of quote, should be delegated to the unelected city manager or an unelected designee, which this unelected city manager designates. And I think that you have addressed that a little bit this morning. That's still of a concern of why this procedure is being done, rather than taking it to our elected representatives, namely you, council, and mayor pro tem. We note that this bill is mentioned as item number 48 on the January 17th City of Las Vegas Council agenda to be brought for a meeting, for a vote at a later meeting. So if you have any comment, but to go ahead here. As voting constituents, the city councilors who sit for a term of this meeting as the recommending committee, we would like to know if when you're sitting here, and today is you, Councilman Barlow, and Councilman Anthony, you are the recommending committee this morning, as we understand it. Will you tell us or write us in a timely manner of our standing, meaning a constituent? Legal wording identifies this bill as legislation, so does it also identify you, council people, as a legislative body acting as a recommending committee?
Do we have council there?
Yes, but I don't understand the question, Councilman.
Okay. If you would repeat the question for us, because I didn't quite understand it, that's why I turned to you, because I thought maybe you could interpret that for me. If you would just repeat your question again, I don't quite understand what you're asking.
Okay, because this is a recommending committee meeting this morning, and we understand that you are not councilman this morning. That we're meeting with the recommending committee. And because this is a piece of legislation, it's referred to in the opening part of the agenda. Because this is legislation, then does this mean that we just want to know what our standing is? Because we're not constituents of a legislative meeting, a committee, but it looks like we are today. So we'd just like to know what the standing of constituents is in this case. And if that can be written to us later, that would be fine.
Well, I can explain it to you right now.
Good.
Okay. And what was your name?
Juanita Clark.
Ms. Clark. Ms. Clark, we are council members, and as far as the recommending committee meeting today, it's a subcommittee on behalf of the entire council, whereas Councilman Anthony and I serve as the chair and co-chair of this committee to make a determination of whether or not these bills need to be vetted more, or if in fact they'll be moved forward to the entire council for approval or disapproval. And so with that, we do have the open meeting law, which basically makes us a viable board, and for that, notices have been sent out to the appropriate areas as designated by state statute. And for that, we have the ability to vote as council members on the recommending meeting today, and so forth.
Okay, so then you are not legislators today then?
Well, yes,
I mean for this meeting?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Okay, so does that place us as constituents of this legislative body?
Yes, you would still be a constituent to this legislative body. That is accurate.
Appreciate that, Councilman Barlow.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else willing to speak on this item? If so, please come forward and state your name for the record.
This is Edgar Patino with NV Energy, 6226 West Sahara, and also with me I have Priscilla Rodenbush, also from NV Energy. We just wanted to show up and show our support for the changes to the ordinance. We believe that this will be very helpful to constituents, especially in the case when, as the Public Works Manager or Director mentioned, we're doing simply maintenance on projects that are in a greater length than 500 feet, rather than have to underground it and inconvenience the residents and add a substantial cost to their project, if you will, in this case. Then this would allow the director, if designated, or the city manager, if designated, to provide that waiver and provide some relief, if you will, to the residents or our customers.
Mr. Patino, do you understand my concern in regards to the constituents in relation to their property, whether it be residential or commercial, having to be responsible for the cost of the underground and the connectivity to their home or business?
With the ability to, for us to ask for a waiver, and if granted by the city, then the commercial business or the resident would actually be, would in that case not have to incur any costs. So I imagine that in nearly every case, the business owner or the resident would be happy that there are no additional costs to be incurred by them due to simply some maintenance that has to be done by our company to keep the system reliable. So in short, I think that in most cases the residents would be pleased. Do you have anything to add, Priscilla?
Yes, it's Priscilla Rodenbush. Basically, looking at Councilman, is that we all are also looking at putting in wording that says if the city manager or designee looks at it and thinks, no, we still want it underground, that it does come back to council. So we're asking for wording in that means as well, to say that we want that in there for you guys to take a look at, so that you do indeed know of the situation and what's happening out with the customers.
And I can appreciate that, and Director Cervantes, I would appreciate something in the bill that will reflect that as well.
Councilman, we'll go ahead and read that into the record tomorrow when the bill comes up as an additional item on there to allow that provision for an appeal.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Councilman Barlow, this is Val Steed. in looking at addressing the concerns of Nevada Energy, I would recommend that instead of providing for an appeal, that we just rewrite the subsections B and C. That right now, subsection B talks about the approval authority, and subsection C says the approval authority is the city manager or her designee, for minor items, if you will, and the city council if the city manager determines that the council should hear it. What I would propose is that we rewrite B and C to say that the default will be that it goes to city council. And then in subsection C, it would say the city manager or her designee may approve an application. So she has no authority to deny it. If she has any inclination to deny it, or if there's any concern raised by anybody, she's just going to ship it automatically to the council. Does that work for you?
That will work. And you're saying subsection B and C?
Right.
Where it states the approval authority may approve
Right.
the application?
B would say except as provided in subsection C, and then B would read it as it reads now, which is the default of going to council. Subsection C would say, in effect, the city manager or the city manager's designee may grant a waiver if the city manager determines that an administrative level waiver is appropriate given the nature and scope of the application. So she or her designee would have no authority to deny. Does that work for Nevada Energy? Okay.
Yes.
And Councilman, it's the denial that would incur the cost to the residents. If it gets approved, there is no additional cost to the residents. To address your concern, the denial would be where the issue would be. If it's an approval, then there is no additional cost to the residents.
Okay. All right. Councilman Anthony?
My motion is to approve with the recommended change in language.
Okay. And maybe I should ask if there's anyone else out there willing to speak on this item to come forward. Is there anyone? Okay. Hearing none. Councilman Anthony?
Same motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you all.
Councilman, we'll send that forward as a First Amendment, and it won't be tomorrow. It won't be until the March 3rd meeting.
Okay, beautiful. Okay. And now we're down to bill number 2010-11, which authorizes the waiver of land development and zoning application fees on behalf of certain local and regional agencies. This ordinance is proposed by City Manager Betsy Fredwell. Staff?
Flynn Fagg with the Planning and Development Department. Public entities file site plans just as anyone else does and are required to pay the same fees. They find themselves in the same situation that we are in today, that their budget funds are limited, and so we are proposing to add text to Title 18 and Title 19, which would allow the city manager to waive fees for public agencies, and specifically that's for those who are partner agencies through SNRPC. And what that means, it would be the Regional Transportation Commission, School District, Southern Nevada Water Authority, Public Utilities, as outlined in the interlocal agreement for the SNRPC. The entities would still have to file site plan applications. It's just that this would allow the city manager to waive the fees associated with those applications.
Okay. Is there anyone here willing to speak on this item? If so, please come forward and state your name for the record. I understand that there is one.
Yes. Juanita Clark speaking for reading what Charleston Neighborhood Preservation has here. Wow. We note the summary waivers land development, but wonder whether fees is best placed between development and, since the objective of this bill seems to be fee waivers rather than land development waivers. That's the little summary blurb up at the top there. Okay, you know our president. We need money, cries our president. Formulate a recommendation to City Council for rejection. Again, we note that the unelected position of city manager may end of quote, have power to waive fees. Because our elected representatives are changing titles and interchanging duties, we now are subjected to appointees having the powers of elected representatives. No. Charleston Neighborhood Preservation will stand on the straight response. We need the money, even though we read this bill as trying to provide monetary relief as government feeds on itself. Thank you for listening to our pleadings. June Ingram and the Board of Charleston Neighborhood Preservation.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. And Mr. Flynn, help me understand the rationale as far as granting the authority for the fee waivers, taking it out of the control of the council. Is it to speed the process up?
It speeds the process up. Just to give you an example, associated with the next item on the agenda, the RTC is looking at doing satellite park and ride facilities. They are required to file a site development plan review for those satellite facilities. However, because of the fees associated with that, basically it's, I believe, about $800 per application. They wouldn't have the ability to go forward with those types of applications, and so that prevents us from moving forward with encouraging transit here in the Las Vegas Valley. And so that's kind of why we are proceeding with this, is to allow those site plans, those plans to go forward without the entities being encumbered by having to find additional budgetary funds. And so again, it's just waiving the fees associated with those applications that are submitted by public agencies. They still have to submit the site plans.
Okay, so those site plans will still come before council?
Where it is required to do so, yes.
Okay. Is there anyone else willing to come forward and speak on this item itself? Please approach the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Hearing none. Councilman?
Yeah, I just have one question. The fee that is charged, is there? Is there a certain cost to the city for the application process that we're now not going to receive? That's going to actually cost the city more to pursue, to have these applications move forward?
There is a cost in terms of city staff time in reviewing the applications. The city's fee schedule does not cover by any means all of the city's time in terms of processing an application. There are also advertising fees associated with certain applications. And so there is going to be a loss of staff time. But again, we don't recuperate that for any of our applications currently.
I'm just concerned that it's going to cost the city. If it's $800 to file the application and it costs $200 to process the application on the part of the city's time, then we're going to lose $200, and that's going to kind of add into our budget problems as it is. So is there any way to just charge the fee based on what it costs the city to process that application? Is there any way to do that?
Not currently. We don't have that set up to do so.
And that would be even more, right?
Yes, typically.
It would cost more than the actual application fee?
Yeah.
Oh, it would? So any idea how much the city would lose a year in these application fees?
I don't have that figure off the top of my head. We had gone through the process about a year and a half ago of looking at how much staff time it takes to process an application. Just, again, going off the top of my head, our application fees are less than the staff time it takes to process them. There just hasn't been the desire to increase our fees to match the amount of staff time required to process the applications.
And so the whole point of this is to allow these other governmental entities to move forward on projects that are good for the city of Las Vegas?
Exactly.
Is that correct?
That's the
So
intent.
that's the balancing test. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine.
Okay. Motion?
Okay, motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Okay, and now bill number 2010-12, which updates the city zoning regulations pertaining to transit passenger facilities, sponsored by Councilman Stephen D. Ross. Yeah?
Flynn Fagg with the Planning and Development Department. We have not had a definition for park and ride facility in our code, and so what we're proposing to do is to add that definition and then to allow park and ride facilities in 2 districts where not previously allowed, C1 and CPB. There are minimum standards that would be required for these type of park and ride facilities, which are listed in the ordinance. As I had mentioned with the previous item, what the RTC is attempting to do to encourage greater transit ridership in the valley is to make smaller park and ride facilities available throughout the city. This would be done primarily through a shared type parking arrangement. For example, one of the things that they're looking at is churches typically only have uses on the weekends or in the evenings, and wherever there is a bus stop near a church parking lot, to lease approximately 10 to 15 spaces in that church parking lot, allowing people to park their car during the day, take transit into the downtown or to the resort corridor, and then use those satellite parking facilities. This would not be brand new single-use parking facilities, but rather allow for smaller satellite type of facilities in a shared parking arrangement.
Okay. Is there anyone here willing to speak on this item? And if so, please approach the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Anyone? Okay, hearing none. Councilman?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Now we're down to citizens' participation, which is public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of this committee. Is there anyone willing to speak on this, to speak during public comment? If so, please approach the microphone.
Juanita Clark, Charleston Neighborhood Preservation. I neglected to complete item 4, and where we did have a call. Our president and board emphatically request that you formulate a recommendation to the City Council for rejection of this bill 2010-10. And thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else willing to speak on this item? If so, please approach the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Anyone, Council?
Nope.
Okay. At this point, I will call the meeting to a close, and I would like to entertain a motion, Councilman.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so very much. This meeting is concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your assistance.